Konnichiwa, I'm Tepe Morimoto.
Hi, this is Dylan Carter.
I'm Minna Appleton.
Hi, I'm Katie Shanahan.
Hi, I'm Duncan Scott, and you're listening to the London Roar podcast.
Hello, this is Steve from Pullbuoy welcoming you back to the London Roar podcast. We're a bit later than usual as we let the team make their way back from Naples, but in this episode we'll talk team and tactics with Roar Head Coach Steve Tigg and catch up with one of the Roar's standouts in the preliminary rounds, Katie Shanahan. I don't have Katie with me this week, but there's still plenty to talk about, so let's get into it. Steve Tigg, you're back from Naples now, after a month in the ISL bubble, if you like. Back into the swing of things in reality?
Yeah, we've got back here into Stirling just over a week ago. I only managed to do the last 2 weeks of the ISL, just because of some commitment. So I wasn't out there for the full 4 to 5 week stint. But I enjoyed watching the matches before I went out and was in contact with the guys, and then I enjoyed watching the subsequent match 11 on a return, which was quite exciting, and still a little bit of ISL fever, even though we were back here in the cold, wet Scotland without the pizza.
We heard a lot about pizza so far on this podcast, so we'll move swiftly on from that. When we spoke at the start of the season, obviously your aim was to make it through the preliminary rounds. You had a depleted squad, as we'll touch on a bit later, and you managed that in third place. So from your point of view, mission accomplished?
I think so. We certainly didn't want to stay for an extra week when we first got out there, and that was the plan, was to utilise the athletes that we had from the start, which, to be fair, is still a really, really, really strong squad of athletes, really experienced, got a good few ISLs under their belt, some new faces coming into the team, some returning faces coming back from season 1, and they've done a great job. Winning the third match, I believe, against Cal was great. And that really cemented our place in the playoffs, and meant that on the fourth match we had the room to be slightly flexible. But I think, given losing some athletes at that point, meant we couldn't perhaps play around as much with the team as we would have liked. But we got it done, and we're really looking forward to Eindhoven and what that brings.
You mentioned the last match there, and as you say, it was a dead rubber effectively, because you were either third or fourth, depending on other people's results, and it didn't affect your qualification. But the match before that, you'd got very, very close to energy, maybe 20 points or so. You've never beaten them in the ISL. Was there any kind of frustration in the team of that being a lost opportunity, perhaps?
Absolutely, and we knew that we were close to them after day one. Unfortunately, we lost Minna to illness on the second day, and we thought that that could be a challenge. So the fact that we got so close, despite the fact that we're without one of our best athletes, and she proved her worth in the fourth match when it came to the skins, wasn't so much frustrating or a missed opportunity. But I think what we walked away from it realising was that we can certainly compete with the best, even with the team that we've got. So there was some really good learning in that. The guys after day one were really motivated to chase it down on day two. We know that James Gibson likes to bring it up with Rob a lot of the time, that we've never beaten them, and we challenged the athletes on that second day to do it for Rob, so he had the bragging rights, and we just fell short. But we knew we got close in the end.
One of the big differences in that match was so watching. There were lots of swings and roundabouts, and as you said, Minna was ill as well. But one of the big differences was Ilya Shimanovic, because he was the MVP. He won loads of points. He made a big difference in the relays, and so there's been a lot of what if on going around the internet, or if onlys, if you like, about Adam having been there. Now, let's deal with that now. I mean, we joked at the start about his cha-cha-cha being a problem, but actually it turned out to be the quick step was more of a challenge for him. But I guess you're now planning that you're not going to have him for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that's always been the reality, I think, from the start, is that we've planned to see out the season without Adam. He was a fans' vote, which is why he was omitted from the original selection. We still got Kirill who could come back in. Ross started to get a lot stronger by the end, and if we get a little bit of cover for Sam on the 200s, then we might see a lot more out of those boys on the shorter events. So we do have a plan to manage it without Adam. And Ilya is one of their strongest athletes, and that event is one of their strongest events. I think what we found was that Ilya managed to jackpot in the men, but then Alia went in and jackpotted on the women and balanced that up a little bit. So it wasn't specifically just the 50 breast or the 100, but certainly the relays is where a lot of the benefit started to come on that for Energy Standard.
The relays are an interesting one, given the jackpots. Did your tactics develop with that in mind? I mean, I think in ISL 1, it was very much about getting two teams that were fairly even and trying to get them both up as high. And now some teams seem to be going for one really strong team, going for the win, and maybe focusing less on the second one to let other people focus on events where maybe they can have more of an impact. Is that come into your thinking at all?
Yeah, we discussed it, and I think if you had the opportunity to win a relay, then that was the tactic to go for. You would fully load it, and you would try and be courageous, be brave, and see if you could get your hand on the wall, which would mean jackpotting a lot of the rest of the other teams, potentially your own as well. There was another way of thinking that if you're being realistic and you couldn't win, are you better off splitting the team? But the risk then became that, okay, you put some of your better athletes in your B team. The jack point cutoff in relays isn't as great as it is in maybe the 400 meter events. So you don't have as much time to play with. And when you look at some of the teams you might be up against, it's almost like a World All-Stars. So it then split a team and maybe have some athletes who the 100 isn't their main event, and they might have already swam and they're already carrying some fatigue. There was an element of risk in that as well. So a lot of the time, it was, let's just stack up the A team, go for a first or a second, and see if our B team can hang on in there. And I think in one of the matches, we actually told the girls in particular, just swim easy. That, once the first two swimmers have gone, who were going to go for it because they'd had nothing else in their programme, I think Sydney and Minna just went in and cruised through to get ready for their other events, which were more important. I think we missed the cut-off time and we got jackpotted, but would rather take a 2-3 point hit in that than not win the subsequent individual events. Yeah. And we didn't want the -8 points for a no-show. Yeah.
Okay. So the jackpots then, everyone's been asked about it through the season. We saw, Rob and James Gibson and a number of the other coaches asked about it on the ISL stream, and yourself, I think, as well. I mean, those are the rules and everybody knew them. So, you're all working in the same framework and adjusting your teams accordingly. But your personal feeling on them?
It was interesting when SwimSwam done their article that jackpot points never actually changed the outcome of a match until the match we had with Energy Standard. My feeling is, if they're going to make such a big deal about ranking points per race, that jackpots should be relevant to the quality of the field that they're racing against. So if it's not a highly ranked field, your jackpot points should reflect that. So if all the coaches and GMs went in to rate from the other teams to race against Ilya Shimanovic, he shouldn't get as many points as he did if he was racing PT, Martin Enge. I get it. If he jackpots them, that's outstanding, but if the field isn't as strong based on ranking points, then should the jackpot points be the same? Or is there a way of making it relative to the strength of the field? And I'm sure that they've maybe got a extravagant equation that they could put together to look at that. But that's my feeling on it, is if it's a weak field, it shouldn't be as big a jackpot.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, I would imagine that the rules will be fixed now for this season, but maybe next year there'll be some different thinking, or maybe the margins will get squeezed out or whatever. But we'll keep an eye on that. In terms of action in the pool, how important was it for you to have people who could take on loads of events and pop up everywhere? I mean, we spoke at the start of the season jokingly about Duncan taking on big programs, and he took on some massive programs, in some of the matches. Has picking your team, how important is that for you to know that you can throw him in 7-8 events and that he'll win maybe 6 of them?
Yeah, it certainly makes it a lot easier to have somebody who's got that resilience and ability to go into different events and be competitive, or not necessarily win, but certainly finish in a position that's going to minimize damage or still maximize point gains. And it makes when you're selecting the rest of the team that little bit easier if you're trying to protect certain athletes because they're more key in other events, or they're maybe carrying a slight injury, or they're not in the type of shape that they would want to be. To have somebody who's able to go in and be a bit of a it's not so much a filler for somebody like a Duncan, because he's competitive at a lot of things and he could specialise in a lot of areas. But it adds flexibility and quality, which is quite rare for that type of individual within the team. Ordinarily that's the swimmer who might be your second choice in each event, and they can go in and do a lot and maybe not get jackpotted or just make the cut-off time. But to have somebody who can actually go in and do it and challenge to win is huge. And I think Duncan was our overall top point scorer. We didn't really utilise him in any relays because we felt we had to use him in events that some people were missing, or we just didn't have the depth or the expertise to do it.
And it seemed to me that the new members of the team did well as well. I mean, we will hear from Katie Shanahan later in this podcast, but she popped up everywhere as well and took her maiden ISL victory as in the 400 IM, and so she was a big plus, I thought.
Yeah, massive. And we had the advantage of being based in Scotland, and I know Katie's coaches in Glasgow really well, so we knew what quality she had, even though her short course PBs on the draft list didn't reflect it at the time. So a lot of teams wouldn't have been aware of Katie or what her ability and potential was. So it was one of those where we had a little bit more information to work with, which is why when myself and Rob spoke, we thought it'd be worthwhile to take the chance. And she had some really challenging schedules as well, and managed them, beyond their years, which was great to see. And I think in the future, she's going to be someone who at ISL can be massively valuable for a team. And hopefully, as part of her development, her learning's accelerated. Certainly her exposure to that type of environment has been enhanced. And for the rest of the season, that could stand her in good stead for World Championships, Commonwealth Games, Europeans, and the lead into Paris.
Well, she certainly showed up well, and I'm sure she'll be on people's radar for next year's draft. Was there anything that surprised you while you were out in Naples? That you thought, wasn't expecting that?
It was very, very different to Budapest. In Budapest, everyone was in the same position where nobody had competition for a long time. So everybody wanted to be there. Everybody was on the same journey where we wanted to get some competition, we wanted to get some training, and we were preparing for the Olympic Games as well as that aspect of the season and short course. A lot of people were in a lot of different places in Naples, and that's across all the teams. Some people were prepared physically and mentally to be there and hadn't gone to the Olympics. Some people had gone to the Olympics and done really well and perhaps weren't fully ready to be there emotionally or physically. So it was a different melting pot compared to Budapest, and you had to be quite respectful of where people were on an individual basis, as well as try and balance up the team aspect. We tried to do that in quite a relaxed manner to give the athletes independence and trust that we've got a job to do here. But we trust that you know where you're at, you know what you need, and when we get to match day, we're going to be able to deliver. So it was very, very different to Budapest, I would say. And I think that Eindhoven will be similar or more similar to the Budapest sort of environment, where everybody's ready, everybody's focused on, right, it's a short stint, then we've got the final. And that'll be quite exciting, because then we can really do a lot more team orientated work and focus in and work together. So
okay, well, you mentioned Eindhoven there. Let's take a look forward to the next stage of the ISL season. So the way the playoffs work, you've been paired with the LA Current, so you have them in all of your matches. It could have been Aqua, because 5th and 6th paired up with 3rd and 4th in the table. How did you feel about that? Or is it, they were both going to be difficult and it is what it is?
Yeah, each team presents a different challenge, and I think we did some simulations before we went into each match, but only used on what had been swum already, and it was amazing how different the outcome was from the simulation. We never took into account jackpot points, and I think when you go against a team, your perception of how they perform against other teams can be a bit skewed. So we were really excited to race Toronto in the last match because we'd never faced them. I know they had one of their athletes missing, the younger girl, McIntosh. But we probably felt they'd be a little bit more of a challenge than they were. That's not to say that once we get to the playoffs, it won't be different. We'll face LA Current a lot. Going back to season one and in Budapest, we were quite familiar. Aqua Centurions are a totally different outfit this season. Last season, they were heavily depleted and didn't really show themselves for what they were capable of. So I think that, to go with LA Current is more familiarity for us. So we'll probably understand their team a little bit better than we would with Aqua, because they could be a little bit more of a surprise in certain places. I know they're missing certain athletes, and one of them's Kathleen, who trains here. We're not sure what the situation will be for them or those athletes once we get to Eindhoven, but it'll be exciting, and I think to race them 3 times plus the others, we've got some. I think our first match is really important for us. I think if we can get a win on the board early doors, then it allows us a little bit more flexibility and security as we go through the rest. So we're going to do a little bit of work on some simulations and try and identify key events that we really need to focus in on. And the good thing at the minute is with the World Cups going on in Budapest, we're just learning a little bit more about some of the other events that our athletes can do. We see Kyle going 140 for the 200 free. It's a great option for us. It means leaving him out in the mixed medley relay, and just little bits that we can start to analyse more and see where we can get to.
I was going to ask about the World Cups and just see whether you were keeping an eye on, obviously, PB. You mentioned for Kyle, and Emma said a PB in the 100 free, and Kira looked good in 200. So, you are keeping an eye on those events.
Yeah, and Kim Bush has done some excellent times as well. We used Kim predominantly as a relay swimmer through Naples, but it's 59.6 in the 100 IM, 106 in the 100 breast, 24.1 in the 50 freestyle. Again, it gives us options and good problems for when we're trying to select the teams, which is never easy going into Eindhoven.
Well, you mentioned Kirill Prigoda already in this podcast. You've got some other athletes that possibly are coming in, and we'd spoken about Tom Dean, Kate Campbell, Valerie Van Ruyen, I think. Do you know if you will have all those in Eindhoven?
We're confident on Tom. The others are TBC, and I know that Rob is working on those actively. See where people are at and whether or not they're going to be available or what it is that we can work out. But Tom's probably a definite. I know that from speaking with Dave McNulty last week in London. He's really keen to get back involved with the team, and he'll be a really strong asset because it probably frees up Duncan in other events and Tom to specialise in particular ones, so we can race fresher, I would say, which is massively important when you get to the top end and the quality is just that little bit higher. Yeah, you need to make sure that the athletes are going into events fresh as possible, and that's a better way to try and enhance your chances of winning. The others are TBC, and I know that Rob's working hard to ensure we can get them in, but to be honest, I'm not sure. It's going to be tight, tough. So.
Well, we will wait to see who lands in Eindhoven in a month's time. Then, just a quick diversion. Emma mentioned on our last episode that her and a few others were going to come and train with you in Stirling. Are you looking forward to working with that group of Aussies? Yeah,
absolutely. And we just felt that as it wasn't far from Eindhoven and it was convenient, and we've got lots of space, that it would be good to try and get particularly the London group together for a little bit of consistency and continuity. And they know a lot of the swimmers that are here already. So we've got 2 here now, Sam Williamson and Laura Taylor. She's from Aqua Centurions. And the rest of the guys will be dropping in throughout the next month. in the lead into Eindhoven, just based on their own personal schedules and things that are going on. But it'll be good. We're really looking forward to having them. I know that Emma won't be far from her uncle Rob, so might go down and visit his house, and I'm sure Rob will come up and visit too. So we're just trying to look for some nice tourist attractions that we can point them in the direction of. And to be fair, round about this area, we're quite spoiled for historical landmarks and scenery. So there's plenty to see and do if they get fed up of the swimming pool.
Well, hopefully the weather will be kind for them as well up there instead.
It's not looking at the minute, to be fair.
All right, then one last question before I let you go. Then we asked you at the start before the prelim rounds what your aim for the season was, and you boldly, of course, said that the aim was to win. Has anything changed in that view after the prelim rounds?
No, I still think that's our ambition and overarching goal is to try and win. And if we fall short, then we'll see where we land. But I think when we're selecting the team, when the athletes are speaking amongst themselves, these guys are winners. It's what they want to achieve. It's no point in saying we'll be happy for second or third. It's just fell short in that first season. And last season we did a great job, despite the fact that we had to bring in a lot of kids in the last minute. This season we're stronger. So let's see what happens, and we'll certainly attack the trophy.
Steve, we'll leave you to go then, and wish you all the best for Eindhoven and your preparations for that, and say thanks very much.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Hi, this is Guido, and you are listening to the London Roar podcast.
Katie Shanahan is with us now. She's sitting back in Scotland after the ISL season. Katie, welcome to the London Roar podcast. Can I start by asking how you found the whole ISL experience?
Yeah, I thought it was so good. My first ISL experience, it was really, really fun. The guys have done a couple more seasons before me and stuff, so they kind of knew what to expect and stuff. I was going in as a rookie, not really knowing what to expect. But no, it was really, really fun, really good experience for me, especially being so young. I think it was so good to have that, behind me, going on to future meets and hopefully future ISL seasons as well.
You mentioned obviously being a rookie and being one of the younger members of the team. I imagine that you maybe knew a couple of the Scottish members of the team in particular, but how did you find kind of getting to know everybody and fitting in with the team?
Yeah, so obviously I knew quite a lot of the Scottish people. Obviously I knew Ed as well, who was there, who's also similar to my age. But I was a bit nervous, not going to lie, going into it, because also didn't really know anyone. I was like, oh God, what if no one wants to speak to me and stuff? Because I was so young. But no, everyone was so friendly. Everyone was so nice and stuff. I got to know everyone really well and stuff, which is good. And I can't wait to see them all again in Eindhoven.
What were your expectations heading to Naples? What did you hope to get out of that sort of prelim set of matches?
Yeah, I didn't really have that many expectations off the back of it, because I hadn't really swam any any proper short course meets since 2019. So I didn't really know what to expect in that behalf. And also, being the first ISL, I didn't really know how well I'd swim in comparison to, Olympians who've been there and stuff. So I was actually really, really happy with how I swam and stuff. So yeah.
I want to pick up on that, because you say you hadn't swum short course since 2019, and obviously everyone knows that the last 18 months have been a bit different and a bit difficult for everybody. But as far as I can tell, you swam a lot of events. You swam best times in everything. So you've got to be happy with that. Yeah,
no, I definitely am. I kind of expected to be swimming PBs and stuff, because obviously I hadn't really swam in quite a while. But I didn't expect to be doing as big as PBs as I had been. So yeah, I was really happy on that behalf with that.
I mean, Steve mentioned that you'd perhaps been a little bit under the radar because the times you threw into the draft were from such a long time ago, and perhaps they didn't reflect your actual level of performance. So yeah, you obviously took a big step forward, but you quickly became sort of a really important part of the team, because you swam loads of different events. I mean, I had a quick look, and as far as I can gather, you swam the 200 back, the 200 IM, the 400 IM, the 400 free, the 100 back, and the 100 IM at one point. So you became quite important for the team quite quickly by being able to drop in at all those different places. How did you feel about that? Being a key member of the Roar already.
Yeah, no, really happy when you read out all those events there. It does sound like quite a lot, doesn't it? But no, I was really happy to, be slotted in for those events for the London Roar. I was happy to do it for the team, whatever I had to do, I would do. The first time I was told I was in the 400 free, I was a bit apprehensive about it because I hadn't done it in quite a while. I was a bit like, oh God, I didn't really know what to expect and stuff, but I gave it my best shot and stuff. And yeah, no, I was really happy with how I swam. Most of those events I hadn't done in quite a while, as I've said before, but yeah, doing anything for the team, like I said, but yeah.
And obviously the 400 IM saw you take your first ISL win as well in match 8. How was that for you?
Yeah, I was so happy with that. I just still can't believe I won that. But going into it, obviously Ohashi was in it, all these big names and stuff. I was obviously nervous before, but yeah, I just thought I've had nothing to lose. I was so young and stuff, and with the team behind, I think that was a match with energy when we were neck and neck with the points, I think it was. So I really, really wanted to try and get the win to get the points and the jackpot points as well for the team to try and get us ahead again. So yeah, I'm really happy I won that, not only for myself but for the team as well.
You mentioned Yuya Hashi, who obviously came straight from the Olympics where she'd won the 400 IM, and there were number of Olympians around that you were racing against, and there were a number in the Raw squad that you were training with. How did you find that kind of environment? How was it training with the likes of Emma McKeown or Sydney Pickram, or those people who have been at the top of world swimming?
It was so good. See the experience I gained from that. It was so good. Seeing how they trained every day and stuff. It was a lot different because obviously everyone is at different points of the season. Not that many people were doing that many meters and training and stuff, which is fair enough. I was doing quite a lot of meters because of the point I was in my training and stuff. But training with them, seeing how they perform, how their pre-race tactics are, what they do in the warm-up, what they do before they go up to the race. I learned quite a lot from them, especially seeing obviously everyone that was at Olympics and stuff. So yeah, it was really good just seeing people there.
We said earlier that perhaps you'd been a bit under the radar through the draft. How did your place with the Raw come about? I mean, you obviously joined through the sort of post-draft free agency kind of period. How did that first come to your attention?
Well, I previously spoke to it with my coach Ian Wright about entering the draft. Obviously, we knew that it had to be over 18s, but we just thought, we'll give it a go, see if I get picked or not, because obviously I was under 18 at that point. So I entered that and I didn't get picked in the draft, which I was kind of expected. I didn't expect to get picked by anyone. And then a few days after the draft, I got a phone call from Rob. And first, it didn't come up Rob's number, so I just thought it was a dodgy number. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to pick that up. So I just left it. And then he called again. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should pick it up. So it was Rob just telling me that, he wanted me to be selected to be part of the team. And I was so over the moon by it. Honestly, I was starstruck for the whole day. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go to ISL. Yeah, and then when we were actually at European Juniors, Ed Mildred, who's also a new rookie, Rob messaged me about Ed being on the team to see if he wanted to be on it. And telling Ed that, honestly, I'll never forget his reaction. He was so happy about it. So yeah, I'm still just so grateful to being picked and to being chosen for the team. But so yeah.
Oh, great! That's really great. I like to hear that. Particularly the fact you left Rob hanging because you weren't sure it was him. So excellent. 2021 has been quite a year for you. You made your senior GB debut at the European Championships and made the final of the 200 back, and then 6 medals at the European Juniors, and now a key role in the ISL. You're looking just to keep rolling that on for the rest of the year and then build into 2022.
Yeah, definitely. With the year we had in 2020, it was hard for us all, and to have bounced back from that and to being picked for the European seniors. That was obviously my first senior debut, and it was so good. Being on a team with Duncan Scott, Amy Wilmot, all these people, Tom Dean as well. It was so good. Seeing and training with them, and racing with them. It was a really, really good experience. I think that really helped me coming into the back of the ISL, because I kind of knew what to expect almost after being in a team with some of the Olympians. And then obviously after Europeans, it was European juniors, and I was really, really happy with where I stand there. You know, I feel like I left my last junior meet with a name for myself almost. So yeah, and then obviously getting picked for ISL was so good as well. Yeah, and just, you know, looking forward to Eindhoven and then seeing what the rest of the year can bring. And then obviously next year, trials for Commonwealth Games, and then obviously there's commies and then World Championships as well. So hopefully I can get picked for some of those teams.
Those people who listened to earlier episodes of this podcast will have heard your little intro that you did for us when we were introducing the Roar recruits for 2021. You mentioned in that your dancing background. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so obviously I've danced for 12 years of my life, of my 17 years. So yeah, I've actually done quite a lot of clubs when I was younger. I done dancing, gymnastics, I did trampolining as well. So I done quite a lot when I was younger, but dancing and gymnastics were the main ones I did. But obviously I had to stop them for swimming. I was actually really sad to stop dancing, because I actually do still love dancing. Even though I can't do it anymore, I would have loved to have kept it going, but obviously with swimming and, you know, I couldn't. But it was mainly ballet based, so it was a lot of like ballet, and we done like point shoes, the big block things. We done those, so you know, it actually was really good for swimming with like core and stuff. So yeah, I've done that for 12 years.
And do you think having that kind of broad base of different sports and interests and stuff has actually helped you swimming? I mean, you mentioned the core strength from ballet things, but that wider focus, has that been helpful, do you think?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. You know, growing up, because I think like a lot of people growing up wouldn't have had, well, maybe they did, I don't know, but like the two, three sports. But I think it really helped me because, you know, all my focus wasn't on swimming. My focus was on like swimming, gymnastics and dancing, which was quite good because it put my mind off swimming for quite a bit. You know, going to gymnastics once a week, going to dancing once a week. It was good, and you know, seeing like different people as well, socialising with different sports was really good as well. So yeah.
Obviously, he's wasn't in Naples and may not join up with the team, but presumably you're now critiquing Adam Peaty on Strictly with your dance knowledge.
Yeah, no, it's actually so good watching him. You know, I'm quite a Strictly fan myself, so I am. I've watched it for quite a lot of years. So watching him, you know, it's actually so funny. But he's doing really, really well. So good on him. Yeah,
no, he's really thrown himself into it, which is great.
Yeah.
We'll just look quickly forward to the playoffs in Eindhoven. Obviously, you've set a standard for yourself now. Through those preliminary rounds, what are you hoping to get out of Eindhoven and those matches there?
I think just following up how I swam in Naples and stuff. Hoping to swim faster, maybe. You know, we've got a 6-week block of training here to really focus on some key skills, key aspects of my race that need touching up. So obviously 6 weeks is a great time to do it in. But yeah, just, you know, doing really well for the team again, slotting into any races I need to be for the team, and just having fun again. So yeah.
Well, Katie, we will let you get back to your day and say thank you for your time, and wish you all the best of luck for Eindhoven.
Thank you very much for having me.
I am Kira Toussaint, and this is the London Roar podcast.
Great to hear from Steve and Katie there, and plenty to look forward to in Eindhoven in about a month's time as the ISL playoffs kick off. We'll be back then after the Roar's first match to catch up with the team and talk about what happens. But in the meantime, you can get in contact with me at Pullbuoy on Twitter or at Pullbuoy UK on Instagram if you've got any questions or anything you want us to put to the team when we come back. But in the meantime, please do leave us a review or share this podcast with your swimming friends. And we'll say thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the London Roar podcast by Pullbuoy. For more episodes, visit www.pullbuoy.co.uk/roar.